Wow. Thank you so much. Isn't it great to have the Conservative family all together back in one room again? It is so great to see you folks, all of you friends from across this great province. First of all, thank you, Cynthia, and congratulations on your acclamation as our new party president. I'll tell you, it's not easy to be acclaimed. This is a sign of great respect for Cynthia and a lifetime of servant leadership to this province and to this movement. Thank you so much, Cynthia. And how about not just a big hand for her, also as convention chair, but for the dozens of volunteers who have worked for months and who are helping to bring us here together. How about a big round of applause to all of those grassroots Conservative volunteers? Boy, when I have to just pause to say, we were still, the board was still debating a few weeks ago whether we should be doing this online or in person. And we wondered whether enough people would actually come in person. This is an overflow crowd. That is a sign of the strength of Alberta's Conservative movement. Thank you. Friends, today I want to talk to you about the challenging times that we have all been through and how we are emerging from them Alberta strong. But first, let me thank our wonderful hosts here at the Grey Eagle, the Tsuut'ina First Nation. Thank you for welcoming us here to traditional Treaty 7 territory. A week ago, we marked Remembrance Day, honoring the sacrifice of our glorious fallen and all who have served in our uniform to defend us. One of those men was Harold Crowchild. Harold was born on the Tsuut'ina Reserve in 1915, and he enlisted in the Canadian Army to fight fascist evil in 1942. Proud of his Indigenous roots and heritage, he crossed the sea to unite with Canadians of all backgrounds in that epic endeavor. Harold operated Sherman tanks in the liberation of France, Holland, and Germany before returning home as a highly decorated veteran to become a respected elder of this First Nation. We honor the bravery and the patriotism of Harold Crowchild, and we are inspired by the spirit of unity in diversity that drove him and hundreds of thousands of young Canadians to victory. Harold and his generation overcame great adversity to win that victory. Many of the soldiers he fought with grew up on hard-scrabble farms in the dirty 30s in what we would now consider abject poverty. And Harold himself, he emerged from a community here that had been devastated by the injustice of the Indian residential school system. But together, Harold and his comrades struggled through adversity, and they emerged together, united and victorious as proud Canadians. They were resilient and were united by a great cause. Friends, we Albertans have been through our own time of great adversity. For 5 years, we struggled through economic decline and stagnation, prolonged and deepened by the job-killing policies of the Notley-Trudeau alliance. People had lost their homes, their businesses, and many had given up on Alberta altogether, picking up and leaving the province. Then we were sideswiped by the triple whammy that no one saw coming. The worst public health crisis in a century, the deepest global recession since the 1930s, and the biggest collapse in energy prices ever. This crisis challenged each and every one of us deeply. We mourn the lives of those that have been lost. We regret how COVID has dislocated our lives, separated us from loved ones, thrown many into despair, and caused so much incalculable damage. Let's not sugarcoat it. Some of that damage has been inflicted on our government and our party. Like every government in the world, we have sought to lead through COVID by trial and error, often faced with only bad choices. We've been in uncharted territory, combating an ever-changing viral disease that is lethal. We have made mistakes in the process, and as Premier, I must take responsibility for that. But let me tell you, from the bottom of my heart, that our government has always strived to find the right balance. Our goal from the beginning has been to protect the healthcare system from being overwhelmed while minimizing the damaging effects of restrictions. Unfortunately, the debate over COVID has been polarizing, probably more so in Alberta than anywhere in Canada. From day one, the Alberta NDP was the only opposition party in the country to see COVID as an opportunity for partisan division rather than social cohesion. We all know that had they been in office over the past 20 months, Alberta would have been in a hard Australian-style lockdown with constant closure of schools, businesses, and places of worship. The human cost of that would be incalculable. On the other end of the spectrum, we all know people who wanted us to just let it rip, to take little or no precautions, to substitute slogans for action. But there is no doubt that that approach would have ended in catastrophe with overwhelmed hospitals and thousands more deaths. None of this has been easy for us as Conservatives. We place a high value on freedom and on personal responsibility. And I consider it one of our province's great strengths that we have so many Albertans who jealously guard their liberties and distrust government overreach. But I also believe that the dignity of the human person, the sanctity of human life, and the need to protect the vulnerable are also deeply conservative values. Conservatives understand that we are not islands unto ourselves, that we have obligations to one another through society. Now, I'm going to be blunt. I know that many of you are angry with me and our government for having introduced public health restrictions at various times throughout COVID. I get it. I really do. I hear you, and I do so respectfully. It is no secret that these views have been strongly expressed in our caucus. But please hear me. If we had not made tough decisions, for example, in September, there is absolutely no doubt that we would have exceeded the total possible capacity of our hospitals to provide critical care. I was days away from having to authorize critical care triage protocols. Bluntly, that means pulling life support from some people and denying life-saving care to others. The very thought of that filled me with dread. As I said at the time, I don't care what the political consequences are. I cannot and will not let that happen. We cannot and will not let that happen. Thankfully, Albertans have once again risen to the challenge and together have brought this wave under control. But the people who deserve our greatest gratitude are our frontline healthcare workers. I see some of them in this room, and many of them have done their jobs under unthinkable pressure over much of the past 20 months. They have been truly Alberta strong. So please stand and join with me in saluting Alberta's fantastic frontline healthcare workers for all that they do. Friends, none of us imagined 20 months ago that COVID would still be affecting our lives so profoundly today. While we cannot say for certain what the future holds, we must do everything possible to manage risk while getting on with life. And we are developing a strategy to do just that. This includes continued rollout of our successful vaccine program. It includes Minister Copping's work to expand intensive care capacity in our healthcare system. It includes much wider availability of rapid testing across the province, and it includes earlier and more widespread use of therapeutics like monoclonal antibody treatments, plus other drugs as soon as they are approved. Fellow Albertans, together we are overcoming this time of trial and emerging from it stronger than ever. As soon as our government took office in the spring of 2019, we began laying the building blocks of our economic recovery through the elimination of the NDP's job-killing carbon tax, Bill number 1, through the job creation tax cut, which has given Alberta one of the most attractive tax rates for new investment in any place in North America, through the yes, please. Through the Red Tape Reduction Action Plan, through which we've already eliminated, get this, and we don't celebrate it enough, we've already eliminated 20% of the regulatory burden on Alberta's economy, cutting 120,000 rules. We've gone from an F to an A on the CFIB's Canadian Red Tape Report Card. I see some small business people standing up to applaud that one. We rebalanced Alberta's labour legislation. We repealed the Bill 6 NDP attack on our farmers by passing the Farm Freedom and Safety Act. We're implementing our Fairness for Newcomers action plan to help new Canadians get to work at their skill level to achieve their dreams and contribute fully to our prosperity. We created the Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, which is helping First Nations become not just participants, but owners of major resource projects to move their people from poverty to prosperity, which is the great moral cause of our time. We brought in an energy-only market. We did away with all the NDP power subsidies and their carbon tax and their micro-regulation. We brought in a real market approach, just about the only one in North America, which has resulted in $5 billion in power production investments and the fastest-growing renewable sector in Canada. We brought in the Skills for Jobs strategy, and all of this stuff was in our platform that you informed as grassroots members. We brought in the Skills for Jobs strategy, which is increasing support for skilled trades and practical learning to better prepare young Albertans for the jobs of the future, because, you know, as I always say, we Conservatives believe that a trade certificate has every bit as much value, merit, and worth as a university degree. We took these and other actions to build the foundation of economic recovery before we were hit by COVID. And then, in response to the COVID economic collapse, we stepped up with our ambition through Alberta's Economic Recovery Plan, a bold plan to build, to diversify, and to create jobs while building on our economy's traditional strengths. This has meant record investments in building the architecture of our future economy: schools, hospital, roads, rural internet, and so much more. The plan included the Innovation Employment Grant to ignite growth in the high-tech sector and innovation economy. We brought in an expanded petrochemical incentive program to create thousands of new high-paying jobs in a great industry that can both green our economy while ensuring a future for our natural gas industry. We brought in the natural gas vision and hydrogen roadmap, and I'll say more about that. We brought in an expanded film and television tax credit. We brought in the Jobs Now program, the largest ever jobs training program in Alberta history, to connect the unemployed and underemployed to the growing number of available jobs. Go ahead, that's important. We created the Invest Alberta Corporation to aggressively go out there and sell the Alberta Advantage, this province emerging as the freest and fastest moving economy in North America. We brought in historic investments in irrigation infrastructure, the first in over 60 years, to support our farmers, increase their yields, and better conserve water. We are historic investments to expand rural broadband, because we want to ensure that people who live in rural and remote areas are able fully to participate in the future digital economy in their communities, essential for the future of rural Alberta. And so much more. And look at the results, because, friends, the results speak for themselves. Alberta now is leading Canada in economic growth by a country mile, and we are set to do so again next year. We have the second fastest job creation record in Canada this year. 65,000 new jobs created just in the last 3 months. 90,000 since the beginning of this year. Unemployment down by nearly half a percentage point last month. We replaced all the jobs lost since the beginning of COVID. And get this, we are within a month or two of fully recovering where our economy was at before the disaster of the Notley-Trudeau alliance in 2015. Let me tell you one of my favorite stats that says everything you need to know about Alberta. And it's this. Last year, in the midst of what I call a double recession, the COVID recession and the energy price collapse, you would think that Albertans would be filled with despair. But instead, what is our greatest asset? It's the entrepreneurial culture of our people. And we saw that last year. I see Brett Wilson clapping. We saw that a great Alberta entrepreneur. We saw that last year with the highest number of business incorporations in the history of our province. Where else in the planet would people, when faced with a double whammy recession, would go out and start a new business? I'll tell you where. In Alberta, the home of free enterprise. It's amazing. What a province, what a people. And here's another one that I love. You know, all the clever people, the Laurentian elites, the NDP, their friends in the Trudeau Liberal government, you know, all of them have been telling us, lecturing us Albertans, that oil and gas is over, it's a legacy industry, why don't you stubborn Albertans move on already, wake up and smell the coffee. You know, they were telling us that for years and years and years. And now what do we see? The most remarkable, dynamic, and I believe durable recovery of this country's largest industry with strong and abiding commodity prices. Folks, what is this telling us? As there is an emerging global shortage of energy around the world, that Alberta is there to provide that energy. And we will not relinquish global energy markets to the world's worst regimes, to the Saudis, the Venezuelans, and the Russians. We will be there as that ethical supplier of energy for years and years and years to come. And I hope Rachel's not watching, because I'm just about to spoil her day with this stat. Last month, we produced, shipped, and sold more Alberta oil than at any time in our history. We've seen the completion of Line 3 replacement, and TMX is on track. And let me pause there as well to send a message to our friends in the United States. You know, we had President Biden vetoed the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have safely delivered 840,000 barrels a day of responsibly produced Alberta energy to U.S. markets. He vetoed that in January, and now he is begging and pleading with the OPEC dictatorships and Putin's Russia to increase production and shipments to the United States. He's pleading with developed countries to open their strategic petroleum reserves. He's lifted sanctions on Russia, building their gas pipeline to Western Europe to dominate strategically Western European energy interests. He's lifting sanctions on American investment in offshore Venezuelan heavy oil development. You know, President Biden, we Albertans have a message for you. If you don't have enough oil, we Albertans are happy to help out. Approve the Keystone XL pipeline. It's not complicated. And by the way, did you know the Keystone XL pipeline, it was going to deliver 840,000 barrels a day of energy produced at the world's highest environmental, human rights, and labor standards? But today, the United States is importing 840,000 barrels of dirty conflict oil from Putin's Russia. It doesn't make any sense, but we won't relent. We will continue to fight for common sense in global energy markets. Friends, our farmers had a tough year, with weather, but still we are seeing the strongest investment ever in the agri-food sector with new food processing plants, and we are working on $1 billion of additional investment that will ensure a vital future for that historic industry. And how about, after a tough year, how about a big round of applause to all of the farmers and ranchers who feed us every single day? We thank you guys and we love you. The forestry industry in Alberta is having its best year ever, and major investments are on the way. We have the fastest growing high-tech sector in North America. Just in the past few months, billions of dollars of announcements for new high-tech ventures here in Alberta from major global companies, including 2 weeks ago, by far, the largest investment in high-tech or digital in the history of our province, a $4.3 billion investment from Amazon Web Services that will create $5 billion of economic activity, create a minimum of 1,000 jobs, and puts Alberta on the global map as a global tech leader. We're having the best year ever in venture capital investment. That's the jet fuel of the startup economy, of the innovation businesses. We are having the best year ever by far in Alberta's film and television industry, thanks in part to our expansion of the film and television tax credit. We've gone from about $150 million a year in investment there to $1 billion a year right now. We have 8 major productions, including the largest production ever filmed in Canada, HBO's The Last of Us. We are seeing an entire new industry take root, driving forward diversification, filling up hospitals, well, maybe The Last of Us. It is a zombie movie. Filling up hotels. It's a zombie movie, and so, by the way, if you see zombies wandering around in your community, don't worry, they're just actors, it's not the NDP caucus. It's a joke, it's a joke. I'll probably get into trouble on that. And how about this? A month ago, we announced the largest private sector investment in Alberta in a decade and a half with the Dow Chemicals net zero emitting ethylene cracker and processor in the industrial heartland east of Edmonton, one of multiple huge new petrochemical projects, and I can assure you many more are coming. Minister Nally, Minister Savage and I are working on those. And last week we announced the $2.5 billion investment by Northern Petrochemicals in Greenview County that will create 4,000 upfront jobs, 400 high-paying ongoing jobs, another net zero project. All of these projects helping us to improve our environmental performance, which helps us to get access to capital for our energy sector, while ensuring future demand for natural gas, which means more drilling and work for service companies, and creating products that are in demand that we get to ship all around the world. It is a win, win, a win, a win for the environment, a win for jobs, a win for diversification, and a win for oil and gas. And that's before I even get to the Alberta future around the hydrogen economy, a $2.5 trillion economy. And folks, we've already had 5 significant investments. There are many more in the hopper. And I believe that between now and 2030, Alberta will have established itself as the center of the multi-trillion-dollar future hydrogen economy. It's exciting. Housing starts are up. People are moving to Alberta once again to benefit from our renewal of the Alberta Advantage. Last week alone, as Miranda Rosen said on stage, was a $7 billion week in terms of announcements for this province. No wonder the NDP looks so upset on the other side of the legislature. For them, good news is bad news, but for Albertans, this tells them that hope really is here for our future. Many more major investments are close to landing, and none of this is happening by accident. Friends, there's one simple message in all of this. Alberta is back. Alberta is rising. Alberta is on a roll. Now, friends, let me say that all of this has been thanks to, in part, your hard work, to electing this government and forming its policy agenda. And through all of this that I've just talked about, we have continued to work around the clock to keep our commitments to Albertans in the most ambitious and detailed platform ever presented to voters in an election. In 2.5 years, we have completed or made major progress on 304 of 372 platform commitments. That's 82% already completed, with another 1.5 years to go. And I want to thank our caucus, your MLAs, for making this happen. We have passed over 100 bills through Alberta's legislature to make this possible. That is more legislative work than any legislature or the Parliament of Canada throughout the COVID crisis. We have worked harder and done more to keep these commitments. These policies were inspired by you, the grassroots members of this party, and I can't wait to see the ideas that emerge from this room throughout the course of this weekend. And let me give you an example of some of the areas where we have kept those commitments. Fiscal responsibility. It's easy to forget in all of the tumult of the past 2 years how we inherited a fiscal crisis from the spendthrift NDP. But through carefully controlled spending, led by our brilliant Finance Minister, Travis Toews, sure, give Travis a hand, and hard work by all ministers and caucus, we have made difficult choices. And you know, some of them, yes, some of them were controversial and drew criticism. But we always knew that would be the case. We know that governing isn't easy unless you avoid the hard decisions. We were elected to take some hard decisions. So we have carefully controlled spending, and I believe that Travis will be presenting to Albertans a radically improved fiscal situation in his February budget. We restored parental rights in the education system, and we brought in the Choice in Education Act. The Choice in Education Act that says for the first time in Alberta law that we recognize as a fundamental human right that parents have the first say in how best to educate their children. We have created new charter schools, getting back to Alberta's tradition of innovation and competition to drive better results for students, to prepare them well for their future. And I think most importantly, I stood before you in May of 2018 to say that we would stop the NDP's ideological, left-wing, politicized rewrite of the school curriculum. We kept our word. We stopped it, and we stopped it in its tracks, and we are now presenting Albertans with a thoughtful and balanced curriculum to prepare young people with the skills of reading and writing, of math and numeracy, and a balanced view of Canadian identity and history, of civic literacy, to set young people up for success. Thank you, Minister LaGrange, for all that you are doing. On democratic reforms, we kept our word and have passed into law a Citizens Initiative Act that allows Albertans to go straight to a referendum vote on issues if the legislature is not listening. We passed the recall law, which will be brought into force in the next few weeks. We kept our commitment to renew our tradition of Senate democracy and with our elections last month. And how about a big congratulatory round of applause for the three top vote getters who I believe are all with us here today, to Pam Davidson, Erica Baroudis, and Mikhail Martinyuk. Thank you and congratulations. We've kept our commitments to make life better for Albertans, even at a time of fiscal scarcity. We've invested $3 billion more in the healthcare system to cope with COVID, another nearly $1 billion in baseline support for our surgical initiative, which I believe we will still achieve the goal of by the next election, to get our surgical wait times down to clinically acceptable standards after having inherited a disaster from the NDP. We've invested an additional $80 million for the recruitment and retention of rural doctors. And yes, we have a lot more work to do to ensure high-quality, reliable health care in rural areas. It's always a challenge, but we are focused on resolving it. We have taken real measures to crack down on rural crime, and our rural crime strategy has had real results, and we've begun to see a significant decline in rural property crimes. How about our action on mental health and addictions? One of the really great social crises of our province that we've been living through in recent years, and made only worse by the COVID situation. Thanks to the leadership of first Jason Lewan and now Mike Ellis, we are creating 4,000 additional treatment spaces. We are building 4 new long-term residential treatment facilities. We have eliminated our fees to access government-funded addictions treatment centers. Our approach is not the NDP approach, which is to facilitate addiction. What the NDP now wants to do is adopt so-called safe supply policies where the government delivers dangerous drugs to people who are coping with addiction. Instead, we are presenting the option of hope, of lifetime recovery from the trap of addictions. That's compassionate conservatism. That is compassionate conservatism. We have been rolling out our human trafficking action plan, in part with the advice of Paul Brandt's task advisory committee on cracking down on human trafficking. We've taken other measures like Clare's Law to better protect vulnerable women and children from exploitation. And we have kept our commitment to fight for a fair deal for Alberta. We sued Justin Trudeau over his federal carbon tax. We are suing his government's outrageous violation of our exclusive authority under the Constitution to regulate the resources that belong to Albertans. And I believe we are going to win at the Alberta Court of Appeal in our constitutional challenge of the No More Pipelines Law, Bill C-69. We've created an Alberta Parole Board. We've appointed an Alberta Chief Firearms Officer to have a common sense Alberta perspective on the application of federal firearms legislation. And yes, in October, we kept our commitment to let Albertans pass their judgment on the fairness, our fair deal in the Federation, to vote yes on a fair deal by voting on equalization. That vote was ratified by the legislature, and we now formally begin the process of demanding negotiations for a fair deal so that we can develop the resources that pay so many of the bills in the Canadian Federation. And we will not relent. Finally, we continue to do the important work of examining the possibility of exercising even more powers, like through the creation of an Alberta provincial police force, which I believe would give us amazing advantage of local community policing And I encourage all of you to look at the model that Minister Madhu has presented, which would have greater integration of social services, of alternative drug treatment courts, of child wellness services, of Indigenous oversight as well, into police governance. How about, just imagine this, a day when a kid who grows up in Wetaskiwin who wants to serve her community as a police officer can go to an Alberta Police Academy, come back home, and serve the community that she knows so well for the balance of her life, of her career, rather than the revolving door that we currently have. How about community policing to keep our communities safe? I think it's an idea worth exploring. And Minister Toews continues to do important work on the very significant potential benefits to Alberta's economy of a provincial pension plan. So friends, all together, what I'm saying is promises made and promises kept. We still have more work to do, and that is where we must focus on the next 18 months. Now, as I close, let me say, we all know that there will be a leadership review vote next spring, and I want you to know, I welcome that. I embrace that opportunity for accountability. I have tried imperfectly from the beginning of the Unite Alberta movement to offer my own background in a spirit of servant leadership. And ultimately, the members of this party will decide what they want to do. Whether or not you want leadership renewal will be your decision next spring. I just have one request for each and every one of us, which is between now and then, let us focus our efforts and our attention on the people's business, on the priorities of Albertans. We have some internal differences. Every Big Tent political party does and always will. But let us address and resolve those internal differences internally, because the public wants to see parties and government focused not on internal party business, but on the public's priorities, on the crisis that we are facing, on economic recovery. I believe that at the next election, if we continue with the momentum that we have in this province, Albertans will look at the strongest economic record in the Federation, the strongest economic growth in Alberta in over a decade. They will look at incredible job creation and new investment. They will see a government that has kept its commitments to make life better for Albertans, to fight for a fair deal, to focus on jobs, the economy, and pipelines. And if we can stick to the things that we were sent to Edmonton to do, I believe we will be favorably judged by Albertans. But let us focus on the people's business, and let us all be united and resolved in our belief in the future of this province. So many of Alberta's critics have been kicking us while we were down. So many of those who have benefited from our prosperity and generosity have criticized this province at every turn. But I say to those critics, Alberta is back. Alberta is on the rise. Alberta is on a roll. And with your continued support, I believe that we will move forward in the renewal of this province as a great land of hope, opportunity, and prosperity for decades to come. God bless you, and God bless Alberta. Thank you very much.
So